You are in the Temple of the Rants, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Finders Jeepers, who says, rant about your music career. Oh boy, I guess I'll just go through the whole fucking history of it. I mean, what career, am I right? I have in total made about 4 grand off of my music on Bandcamp, a lot of which was given to the producers who worked on some of the albums, particularly in the initial like years of their release. But yeah, so my my music career began, I guess, with the creation of Trial of the Golden Witch, because like I've been trying to write songs forever. Like since I was a teenager, I used to write lots of lyrics in journals and stuff, and like I grew up mostly listening to rock music, prog, stuff like that. So, I mostly envisioned myself as making that type of music, and I have like fully structured and formatted songs in my head, but I can't play any instruments, and I don't particularly enjoy trying to learn them. So like I have songs that it's like it would exist if I knew how to play it or if I could explain to somebody else how to play it. But like I've just never been that interested in actually learning music. So yeah, I just kind of have it all stored away, and then at some point I started making friends who could play instruments, but most of them weren't really interested in forming a band. So like I have a friend named Mike who can play incredible heavy metal guitars. Like he has a ton of technical skill. He can play along to difficult songs, but he doesn't write songs. And like he always saw himself as somebody who would be like a session musician. He ended up basically getting out of guitar eventually, so that never really came about. I have my friend Brandon Tolentino, who's pretty talented at playing like shoegazy type guitars, and again has some technical skill. And he comes up with like original riffs and like can pseudo write songs, but he never seemed that interested in like forming a band, particularly with me or with the people around him. I My friend Marcus, he knows how to play very like rudimentary acoustic guitar, like just chords and stuff, but that's better than I can do. So like when I had these people around, I wanted to get them involved in trying to do recordings. So there was one point where me and Marcus and Victor, because Victor, he doesn't really know how to play anything but power chords, but there was like a brief period where he was just like power chording out on an electric guitar, and it just kind of sounded like black metal. And I was like, okay, let's form a gray metal band, because gray metal is something that Agalach was once referred to as, and I really liked that idea of gray metal, like basically moodier black metal. So, and Marcus can also play some violin. So I wanted to have like these guys work with me to try to do something. So because of the fact that me and Marcus and Victor had all just watched Umineko no Naku Koroni and were pretty into it, I decided to make the band name Trial of the Golden Witch, and each of us was named after one of the characters from the show. So Victor was Battler, Marcus was George Yu, and I was Kinzo. And initially we just like had played together one time where Victor was just playing power chords, I was screaming, and Marcus was doing like violin stuff, and we weren't recording or anything, but I was like, this is what the band is gonna be. We're gonna get some of this on recording, and I'm gonna release it. Well, then I made a SoundCloud, not SoundCloud, a Pure Volume page where we had ended up recording these a cappella demos where me, Marcus, and Victor were just sitting around like making noises with our mouths, and I thought they were pretty fun. It was just like improv a cappella, but it came out pretty entertaining. So I posted one of those as just like the first thing, like our first experimental project in I think early 2011, and then we started making stuff where I would just kind of gather people together to do improv. So like we did one like short black metal thing with Mike where he was again just like fast playing power chords, and then I laid like all this retarded sound on top of it in post. Like most of the early Trial of the Golden Witch recordings are like I get my friends together, we make an improv thing, and then I take it and add more stuff onto it in Audacity. or like or just release it as is, like one long session, and then I cut it into tracks and release it. And none of them gave a fuck at all. Like they were just basically, it was just a thing to do. It was just, you know, a fun way to kill an hour or so at my house. None of them took it seriously or were willing to listen to it back in any way. I legitimately enjoyed them and would listen to them over and over again. And I would post them on Twitter and nobody would give a shit. So, like, I was the only one who was, like, into it in that kind of way. And basically, because most of my friends were good at some kind of instrument, you know, we just kept doing these improv albums. You know, new friends would come. My friend Trevor, who could play bass, so we had him involved in some of it. And eventually, after the first year or so, we'd released like 12 albums, 120 songs or something like that. And I took that and cut it down into a best of, which is the first album that I posted on Bandcamp, and that was best of year one. And then from that point forward, I started releasing the stuff on Bandcamp. So it continued that way for a while, and like occasionally I would do some experimental production myself. Like I had this one album called Memo Music where I was just recording things onto the memo feature on an iPhone for a while, and like anywhere I'd go I'd just take samples from random, you know, room noise and turn that into a beat or something. So like there's a song called Toiletron that's just a bunch of sounds from a bathroom in like a rudimentary industrial beat. And you know, all of this is just me having fun. I would also do a lot of like atmospheric recordings, field recording kind of stuff, you know, like just record the sound of a refrigerator hum and then fuck with it in post to try to make it sound like drone or something like that. And yeah, I mean, this is all just me having a good time, making music primarily for myself. And then I had made this short experimental album called AC at the time that I worked at Target in late 2012. And it was just born out of like my kind of, not really depression, but like just being not in the best state of mind, because I'm like, I was working a full-time job for the first time and I was really physically exhausted because there was a lot of lifting involved, and like was trying to make videos at the same time and just like do a lot of stuff, and it was burning me out. So I made this short album of just like frustration, you know, and I enjoyed it. Then my friend Brando was like just started writing raps, because this was at a period where me and my friends had all gotten really into rap music, and like he in particular was like really into like Kendrick Lamar and Denzel Curry and some other stuff that was, you know, relevant circa early 2013. And he wrote a bunch of these goofy ass rap songs, but he didn't really know how to deliver them, like how to, because they basically were written with no sense of flow at all. They're just really stupid rhymes that are hilarious. And I basically decided to make a bunch of beats out of mouth noises and, you know, modify them again. Like I had learned about clipping and like how they take all these like just stuff that's on their desk and make beats out of it, and I was like, I want to try to do that. So I started making those kind of beats, and I just took like some of Brando's raps and rapped over them, and then I wrote some of my own raps, and it probably got the best response out of anything that I had posted so far. Like, not so much that like the internet gave a shit or anything, but like, you know, Victor was like, wow, your rapping voice actually sounds good. Or like my dad would listen to it and go, yeah, your rapping actually sounds kind of good. And so, and nobody would say that about my singing. Like, nobody was ever complimenting my singing. So I was like, okay, maybe if I do rapping, I'll have better odds. And since rapping is something that you can do where you can make a beat without really having to understand music, like I don't have to play an instrument, I don't have to learn music theory, I can just, you know, make a beat out of whatever samples I have on hand and like construct it entirely in Audacity, because that was how I did everything at the time. And then rap over it. So I made the CC mixtape on that same logic. And then at this time, I was also a part of the My Little Pony community, which has this huge music scene. And as I was getting popular in that community, I made friends with a bunch of musicians, and I was constantly asking to collaborate on their stuff. Well, there were plenty of people who could sing better than me in that community. And so, like, because I really wanted to sing on people's stuff, but nobody was recruiting me as a singer. However, people would recruit me as a rapper because I can rap fast, I can do, complex rhyme schemes and stuff. Like, to me, rapping is easy. Like, I grew up memorizing, Eminem songs and just doing them over and over again and trying to do it as fast as possible. So, like, through that kind of experience, it's easier for me to do raps. So, like, because of the fact that people would actually invite me onto tracks to do rapping, and I had been a part of a bunch of songs I was actually proud of, I started to see myself as, like, more of a rapper than a singer. So then, in like I wasn't really doing much musically for a long time. Like, I was mostly just rapping on other people's tracks when they happened to come along. Occasionally, maybe posting a SoundCloud rap where I did, like, another mouth instrumental. But most of my songs were just like rough, intense, weird shit that nobody liked at all. Nobody would pay attention to my music. Nobody gave a shit. And then at some point, Shade got into trying to produce. My brother Shade, he got FL Studio, and he was, like, really influenced by Chance the Rapper's song Angels and Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly that he was listening to, like, constantly. And he was like, I want to try to make beats. So he starts making beats, and I just thought they were really cool, and, like, they sounded like something I would want to rap over. So when he made the beat that later became Rotten, I wrote some verses for it, and I was just really proud of how my part came out. I sent it to Jesse. He did a verse. His part came out great. And at the same time, me and Jesse had been working on a project where I was making all these weird, really goofy beats, like, again, with my mouth for the most part, and sending them to him, and he would rap over them. And so we were, like, building a collaborative project there, and then me and Shade had something going on. And, like, Shade was just consistently making beats, so just whatever he made, I would take it, I would spit on it. If I liked it, I would post it on SoundCloud, and then eventually we had 10 tracks, and I cobbled that into an album. That was Bedroom Bedrock. And for the first time, it got, like, some response. And, like, because I thought it was a lot better than any of the music I had made up to that point, I actually posted it to the After Dark channel, whereas, like, my music used to get so rejected that I would only ever post it on SoundCloud or on my old Modal Soul Productions channel that only, like, the most hardcore of fans were following, And, like, even then, they didn't get, like, a strong response there. It was more like I was hiding it so that, hiding my shame in, like, how bad my music was. Because even though I enjoyed all of it, nobody else seemed to like it. So when I posted Bedroom Bedrock, like, it wasn't as though it was all glowing response or anything. Like, everything I say about my music gets shit on by people on the After Dark channel. Like, there's a lot of people who just reject the notion of me as a musical performing artist in any way. And they especially hate it when I praise my own work for some reason. I don't know. But, like, yeah, so I posted it there, it got a stronger response, and I felt like I can build from here, like, I can do even better. And then I ended up having FL Studio as well. I started learning how to mix my vocals better. I started, like, figuring out how to do a little bit more production side, and I was interested in, like, creating a sort of narrative across my albums about, like, the changes that were going on in my life. And, like, Bedroom Bedrock came out at a time where I very suddenly started making way more money than I ever had before. Like, I had been doing YouTube for years and making, like, about $1,000 a month pretty consistently for, like, a couple of years. And then suddenly I was making over $4,000 a month, or even up to $6,000 a month, after I made changes to my, like, changed the Patreon to monthly, offered a bunch of new rewards, and, so, like, that period was so exciting that it gave me a lot to rap about. And so, like, from there, it was basically just, again, every time Shade would make a beat, I'd grab it, rap on it, release it, compile it into an album. You got Above the Earth Haunted. Well, then, in early 2017, Shade started slowing down. He ended up getting a job. He just wasn't really producing beats anymore, and I was like, man, I'm starting to really get enthusiastic about rapping. Like, I'm getting response. I feel like I'm getting better. I feel like I'm writing good songs that are interesting. I want to be able to do this more. And I got really excited about the idea for the album Gay and Dead, which was proposed during RadCon 2, during, like, the Ape Escape Let's Play. I think I said I would make an album called that, and, like, over the course of that week, I kept thinking about it and coming up with all these, like, random hooks and choruses and stuff. And so I started working with Sarah Louise, who at the time was known as Blind Skywatcher, and she was like we had been talking for a long time. We had been friends from the Pony era, and we'd done collaborations together. But generally, she hates her own music and doesn't tend to release things. So like we had done some projects together that just never entered the final production stage or got released. So after working on a couple of beats that she had made, I then just went to her house and we did the whole album together there. Like we did like 8 tracks or something like that. No, it would have been 7 because we did one a day every day for a week. And that was the rest of the Gay and Dead production cycle. And so like just releasing that got by far the strongest response of any of my music so far. And like, you know, actually got some decent play, particularly the Fat and Dangerous video, which I had filmed before even the rest of the album was done. You know, got more views than anything else I'd done. And like, still, again, like, I've never taken it that seriously because, again, I get a lot of negative response. Like, every album I do, even though there are people who like it, there's a lot of negativity. None of them have ever blown up. It's never been, like, widely regarded as great music. There's just, like, some people who really like it. And, so it's always been difficult for me to, like, pursue it seriously because I see it as, like, not that well liked. And the difficulty I've had in getting any bigger makes me feel like maybe the only reason people like it is that they like me and that they're not, like, a lot of the people who like my music openly admit that they don't listen to that much music or particularly that much rap. So, like, it's not like I have hip-hop heads telling me my stuff is great, you know? So I've always been kind of... like, I like it a lot, but I don't expect anybody else to. So then, it just so happened that, you know, not long after the release of Gay and Dead, well, actually, before the release of Gay and Dead, I met May, who was just, like, she was really into my music. Like, that was one of the things that she liked the most from me, was particularly Above the Earth Haunted. And so, like... connecting with somebody who actually legitimately cared about my music was a huge confidence boost for me in creating it. So, like, once we got together, I made a bunch more albums over the course of the next year. You know, and I did stuff like emotional anime raps before we started dating, which was just, like, I had some tracks that I wanted to rap over from anime, why not? And, like, just every project just comes from some kind of idea I have about something I want to do musically, and then I just fucking do it, and I can do this stuff pretty fast, I'm pretty prolific, so I have a ton of music, regardless of whether anybody cares about it. But, like, after we got together, it entered a point where there were some people who had liked my earlier music but didn't like the newer stuff I was putting out because I was taking it in different directions, either being more concerned about production quality or just rapping about very different things, trying to create narratives, trying to do this and that, and like a lot of it was reflective of the changes in my life that made me less relatable to some of the people who, like, the appeal of Bedroom Bedrock was that they felt like I felt at that time, but they haven't made the same evolution I've made into how I feel now. And so, like, just for a lot of different reasons, each subsequent release would be not just controversial in the sense that, you know, as usual, not everybody likes it, but now even the people who liked the other stuff aren't necessarily liking this stuff. And so, like, every release I do, it's always a question of, like, who's going to like it, for what reasons, how much enjoyment is anybody going to get out of this, and because none of it has been that much of a success, I've never been able to just pursue it full steam, you know? Like, there are times when I have to make music, where it's like I can't avoid it because I'm in an emotional state that causes it to arise, or I just, like, have experiments that I really want to do. Like, if you look at the stuff that's on my SoundCloud that's not on an album, it's usually just, like, an idea came into my brain and I just made it real quick just to get it out there. None of it's very polished, you know? And that's why I've released all these, like, little random EPs and mixtapes that are just, like, collections of random tracks that I had released that are not very polished. And, like, I haven't done another full album in a while just because the response has never been strong enough to justify it. Like, I spent a lot of time and effort on The World Over. That was by far the one I had, like, the most enthusiasm for, and it just got so little response that I was like, I really can't bring myself to do this again. Like, I can't bring myself to put so much time and energy into something that so few people give a shit about, when I'm in a position in life where, like, I really have to work, you know? Like, it would be different if I, didn't have any debt, if I didn't have like a situation where I have to make like a certain number of Patreon rewards, where I have to make like a certain number of main channel videos, where I'm still trying to grow the amount of money I'm making. Like, if I felt comfortable taking, say, a month off to just work on an album and like take it really seriously and make like something great, I would do that. But I don't feel comfortable doing that. So I don't feel like I'm in a position. But like, if, say, one of my albums had gotten a lot of attention, if it had a lot of sales, if people were enthusiastic, if people were, telling me they wanted merch for it or something like that, then at that point I'd be like, all right, I'm willing to take this risk and go work on a musical project in the hopes of getting it more popular. But you know, it's always it basically just comes down to whatever I feel like doing, I'm gonna do it, and hopefully people like it.